The winter of 1887 came early to Red Hollow Valley, and it came mean. Silas Mercer woke that November morning to the kind of cold that didn't just bite, it punished. The kind that turned breath to frost before it left your lungs and made the floorboards groan like wounded animals. He'd slept in his clothes again, boots still laced, rifle propped against the log wall within arm's reach. Old habits, the kind that kept a man breathing this far from civilization. His cabin sat wedged between two granite ridges where the wind funneled through with enough force to strip bark from trees. Most folks called it poor placement. Silas called it defensive positioning. You saw anything coming from three directions, and the fourth was solid mountain. Nothing approached without announcing itself. That was the point. He'd built this place with his own hands 13 years back after... No, he didn't think about after. The coffee was burnt before he'd even finished making it, grounds floating on top like dead insects. He drank it anyway, standing at the single window facing east, watching dawn struggle against storm clouds that looked ready to bury the valley. The trap line needed checking. Had needed it for 2 days now, but the weather had been too foul even by his standards. Today wasn't much better, but the traps wouldn't check themselves, and fur prices were already falling. Wait another week and he'd be trading pelts for pennies. He layered on wool and hide, wrapped a scarf across his face until only his eyes showed, and stepped into the knife-edge wind. The world outside was gray and white and brutal. Snow had drifted against the cabin's north wall, climbing halfway to the roof. His wood pile looked smaller than he'd like, but he'd been putting off the logging because of his shoulder, same one he'd dislocated 2 winters back and never got properly set. It ached now, deep and constant, the kind of pain that predicted storms better than any sky. The trapline followed Frostwater Creek for nearly 3 miles, winding through stands of pine and over exposed ridge where the snow got so deep a man could vanish. He'd walked this route 1,000 times, knew every rock and hollow, every place the ice went thin, and every switchback where the wind hit hardest. Still took him 2 hours to reach the first trap. Empty. The second had been sprung, but whatever hit it had gotten away. Blood in the snow, but not enough to track. Third was buried under a drift he had to dig through with numb hands. Fourth held a frozen fox, stiff as carved wood, probably dead before the trap even closed. He kept moving. The wind screamed louder as he pushed deeper into the valley. The creek ran beside him, dark water visible through breaks in the ice, moving fast enough that it hadn't frozen solid despite the cold. Dangerous water. The kind that killed quick if you went in. He'd seen it happen once, years back, to a trapper named Hollis who thought he knew better. They'd found him 3 miles downstream, frozen into the bank like driftwood, eyes still open. Silas checked another trap. Empty. Then another. Empty. 7 traps in, and nothing worth keeping. He was ready to turn back when he heard it. Faint. Barely there under the howling wind. A sound that didn't belong. He stopped, one hand going automatically to the knife on his belt. Stood there listening, every sense pulled tight. Could be anything. Wounded animal, maybe. Sick wolf. Injured elk. This far into winter, desperation made creatures do strange things. But it came again. Higher pitched. Rhythmic. Crying. Not animal. Human. A child. His first thought was that the cold had finally gotten to him. Hypothermia played tricks. Made men hear voices, see things that weren't there. He'd heard stories about trappers found frozen, smiling at nothing, convinced they'd reached paradise. But the sound didn't stop. It got louder, closer to the creek. Silas moved toward it without deciding to, boots crunching through crusted snow. The wind shifted and suddenly the crying was clear, desperate, terrified. The sound something makes when it's run out of strength but hasn't stopped trying. He reached the embankment and looked down. His heart stopped. The creek had narrowed here, squeezing between rock walls, and the ice had formed strange, thin sheets extending from both banks, but not meeting in the middle, leaving a channel of black water rushing through. And caught in that current, wedged against an ice shelf 20 feet downstream, was a bundle of cloth. No, not cloth. A child. A little girl, couldn't be more than a year old, wrapped in what looked like a blanket but soaked through, face barely above water, one tiny hand grasping at ice that kept breaking under her fingers. The current pulled at her, trying to drag her toward the rapids another 100 yards down, where the creek dropped 30 feet through jagged rocks. Silas didn't move. Couldn't move. Every survival instinct he'd honed over 15 years screamed at him to walk away. You didn't risk your life for maybes, didn't throw yourself into deadly water for something that was probably already gone. The girl wasn't moving much, probably hypothermic, maybe already dead and just hadn't figured it out yet. You couldn't save everyone. He knew that better than most. But the crying hadn't stopped. Weak, broken, but still there. "Damn it," he said into the wind. He scrambled down the embankment, snow giving way under his boots, half sliding the last 10 feet. The ice along the bank groaned when he stepped onto it. He distributed his weight, moving carefully, testing each step. The creek was maybe 15 feet across here. Fast water. Deep enough to kill. "Hold on," he said, knowing the girl couldn't hear him, maybe couldn't hear anything anymore. "Just hold on." The ice cracked. Not broke. Not yet. But that distinct sound of something giving way, spiderweb fractures spreading. He froze. Redistributed his weight. Took another step. Another crack, louder this time. The girl was 10 feet away now. He could see her face, lips blue, skin gray-white, eyes barely open. She'd stopped crying. That was worse than the crying. Meant she was shutting down, body conserving what little warmth remained. "Come on," Silas muttered. Not sure if he was talking to her, himself, or the ice. He took another step. The ice collapsed. The water hit him like a fist made of knives. Cold so intense it stopped thought, stopped breath, stopped everything except the desperate animal need to surface. His heavy coat immediately soaked through, pulling him down. His boots filled. The current grabbed him, and suddenly he was moving, tumbling, the world a chaos of black water and white ice and burning cold. His hand hit something. Wood. Rock. Ice. Didn't matter. He grabbed it. Held on. His head broke surface and he sucked air that felt like fire in his frozen lungs. The current still pulled, but he had purchase now, one hand locked on a shelf of ice, the other flailing. His body was already going numb. He had minutes, maybe less. The girl was 3 feet away, still wedged against the ice, the current pinning her there. Silas lunged. His fingers closed on wet cloth and he pulled, dragging her toward him, fighting the water that wanted them both. She was so light, terrifyingly light. He got her against his chest, one arm locked around her, and then he was pulling them both toward the bank using the ice shelf as a guide. His muscles screamed. The cold made everything slow, clumsy. Twice his grip slipped and they nearly went under, but he kept moving. Had to keep moving. Stop and you die. His knee hit rock. Shallow water. He crawled forward, dragging them both onto the snowy bank. Every movement agony. His hands didn't work right anymore. His legs barely responded. But he got them up the embankment, away from the creek, into the trees where the wind wasn't quite as brutal. The girl wasn't breathing. Silas tried to unwrap the soaked blanket with fingers that felt like frozen clubs. Got it off. She wore a thin dress underneath, completely inadequate for this weather. No coat, no shoes. Her skin was gray, lips blue-black. He put his ear to her chest. Nothing. He tilted her head back, put his mouth over hers and nose, so small, so fragile, and breathed. Pressed on her tiny chest, breathed again, pressed again. "Come on," he said. "Come on." Nothing. "Breathe, damn it." He pressed harder, breathed deeper. Still nothing. His own body was shutting down. He could feel it. The shaking had started, violent tremors that made his teeth clatter. His vision narrowed at the edges. This was it. He'd killed himself for a corpse. Fitting, maybe. Appropriate end for a man who'd spent 15 years avoiding this exact kind of mistake. The girl coughed. Water came up. Then more coughing, weak and wet, but real. Her eyes opened. Silver gray eyes, unfocused and glassy but alive. She started crying again. Silas almost laughed. He stripped off his wet coat, wrapped her in it, still cold but drier than what she'd had, and pulled her tight against his chest. He needed to move. Needed to get them both to the cabin, or they'd die right here. But his legs didn't want to work. His body wanted to lie down, just for a minute, just to rest. No. He stood, nearly fell, steadied himself against a tree. Then he started walking. The cabin was 2 miles away. Might as well have been 100. Time stopped meaning anything. There was only movement. One boot forward, then the other. Fall. Get up. Keep going. The girl's crying faded to whimpers, then silence. She'd either passed out or died. He couldn't check. If he stopped moving, he wouldn't start again. The wind tried to push him back. The snow tried to bury him. His body tried to give up. He kept walking. When the cabin finally appeared through the white-gray storm, it looked like a hallucination. He almost walked past it, didn't trust it to be real. But his hands found the door, found the latch, got it open. The interior was barely warmer than outside, but it was shelter. Out of the wind. The fire had died to embers. Silas dropped the girl on his bed, the only bed, and went to the fireplace on autopilot. His hands were useless claws. Took him 4 tries to get kindling arranged. The matches kept falling. When he finally got one lit, the flame looked impossibly bright. The kindling caught. He added larger pieces. Soon had a real fire going, heat pouring out. Then he turned back to the girl. She looked dead. Completely still, skin that terrible gray color, not breathing as far as he could tell. Silas pulled off her wet dress with shaking hands. She was so small. Couldn't weigh more than 20 pounds, ribs visible, bruises on her arms and legs. Old bruises, faded yellow-green. Someone had hurt her before the river. He found a blanket, wool and heavy, wrapped her in it. Put her as close to the fire as he dared. Then stripped off his own wet clothes, clumsy, graceless, nearly falling twice, and found dry wool and hide. The warmth from the fire slowly seeped into his frozen body. Feeling returned to his fingers and toes in waves of agony. He made coffee. Real coffee this time, not the burnt slop from this morning. Forced himself to drink it. Forced himself to eat hardtack even though his jaw didn't want to work. The girl hadn't moved. He knelt beside her, put his hand near her mouth. The faintest breath. Still alive. He added more wood to the fire. Checked the windows to make sure they were sealed against the wind. Dragged another blanket over and wrapped it around her. Then sat back against the wall, watching her breathe, waiting to see if she'd stop. She didn't stop. An hour passed. Maybe 2. Time felt strange. Then she moved. Just a twitch of one hand. Her eyes opened. Silas found himself leaning forward. "Hey, you're okay. You're safe." She looked at him, those silver gray eyes focusing, unfocusing. Then she started crying again, loud, terrified, the cry of something that hurt everywhere and didn't understand why. Silas had no idea what to do. He'd spent 15 years alone. Hadn't been around a child since... No, don't think about that. He picked her up awkwardly, one arm under her head, the other supporting her body. She was so light, so fragile. Felt like she might break if he held her wrong. "Shh," he said, because that seemed like what you were supposed to say. "You're okay. You're safe now." The crying didn't stop. He stood, swaying slightly, and walked in small circles around the cabin. Kept talking in a low voice, saying nothing important, just making sound. After a while, the crying shifted to whimpers, then hiccups. Then she just breathed, fast and shallow against his chest. "That's better," Silas said quietly. He sat down in the chair by the fire, still holding her. Outside, the storm intensified. Wind hammered the walls. Snow piled against the windows. But inside, the fire burned warm. The girl's breathing slowed, deepened. She fell asleep in his arms, one tiny hand gripping his shirt. Silas sat there holding her as darkness fell outside. He should put her down. Needed to check his own condition. The cold water immersion could still kill him if he wasn't careful. Needed to eat something substantial. Needed to think about what the hell he was going to do with a child. But he didn't move. Something had shifted when she grabbed his shirt. Some wall he'd built brick by brick over too many years. He didn't have a name for what he felt. Didn't want to name it. Names made things real, and real things could be taken away. "Elena," he said into the firelit darkness. The name surprised him. He didn't know where it came from. His grandmother, maybe, though he hadn't thought about her in decades. "Your name's Elena now," he told the sleeping child. "Because you need a name. Everyone needs a name." She didn't respond, just slept, breathing soft and even. Silas watched the fire burn lower and wondered what the hell he'd just done. Dawn came cold and bright. The storm had passed, leaving the world buried under fresh snow that sparkled in weak sunlight. Beautiful. if you forgot that beauty killed in these mountains. Silas woke stiff and sore in the chair, still holding Elena. His shoulder screamed when he moved. His legs had gone numb, but the girl was warm against his chest, breathing steady, alive. Small victories. He laid her carefully on the bed, tucked blankets around her. She stirred, but didn't wake. He added wood to the fire, made coffee, ate stale bread and dried meat. His body ached in about 40 different places. The cold water immersion had probably taken years off his life. Worth it, though. Maybe. He looked at Elena sleeping in his bed and felt that strange shift again, like tectonic plates moving deep underground. Outside, something moved. Silas went still. Hand dropped to the knife on his belt. There, through the window, a shape cutting across the snow. A rider. Single horse, moving slow, picking its way through the drifts, coming straight toward the cabin. Silas grabbed his rifle, checked the load, moved to the door. Didn't open it, just watched through the gap in the boards. The rider was tall, broad-shouldered, wearing dark wool and a wide-brimmed hat pulled low. He stopped about 50 feet from the cabin. Didn't dismount. Just sat there on his horse, looking at the cabin like he was measuring it for a coffin. Then he spoke, voice carrying clear in the cold air. "I know you're in there, trapper, and I know you have what's mine." Silas said nothing. "Her name's Elena," the rider continued, "though I suppose you've named her something else by now. That's what people do, isn't it? Take what doesn't belong to them and pretend it's theirs." The rider's voice was educated. Eastern accent, refined, didn't match the hard country around them. "My name's Warren Hale," the man said. "Elena is my niece, my blood, and I've come to take her back." Silas opened the door. Not all the way, just enough to be visible. "Little girl was in the river," he said. "Near dead when I pulled her out. You, her uncle, you got a strange way of caring for family." Warren Hale shifted in his saddle. "You don't know what you're talking about." "I know I'm talking to a man who let a baby float downstream toward rapids that would have torn her apart. She was supposed to die." Warren's voice didn't rise, didn't crack, just stated it flat, like fact. Cleanly, quietly, drowned children don't suffer, but you interfered, saved something that shouldn't have been saved. Silas felt ice in his chest that had nothing to do with yesterday's river. "She's a year old," he said carefully. "She's cursed." The word hung in the air between them. "My sister died birthing her," Warren continued. "My brother died in a logging accident 3 weeks later. Disease took my mother that same month. Fire destroyed our mill. Debt collectors came. Everything we built, generations of work, gone within a season." "That's life," Silas said. "Life in hard country. People die. Things burn. Has nothing to do with the child. It has everything to do with her." Warren leaned forward in his saddle. "She's ruin given flesh. Death wearing an innocent face. I've seen it. Watched it happen. Everyone close to her suffers, and I won't let her destroy what little family I have left." "So you tried to kill her?" "I tried to end something that should have ended with her mother." Silas raised the rifle, not aiming, just letting Warren see it. "You need to leave now," he said quietly. "Give me the child and I'll go." "No." Warren sat back. "You're making a mistake, trapper. You think you're being noble, saving an innocent, but you've brought death into your home. You just don't know it yet. Get off my land. This isn't over. It is for today." Warren stared at him for a long moment, then wheeled his horse around and rode away, back the way he'd come, disappearing into the tree line. Silas stood in the doorway watching until he was sure the man was gone. Then he closed the door, locked it, checked the windows. Behind him, Elena started crying. He went to her, picked her up. She was hot. Fever, probably from the cold water immersion. Her tiny body shook with crying. "I know," Silas said, feeling helpless. "I know it hurts." He had some willow bark somewhere. Boiled into tea, it helped with fever. But getting a baby to drink bitter tea, that was another problem. He tried anyway. Spent the next hour fighting her to drink it, most of it ending up on both of them. But enough got in. After a while, her crying settled to whimpers. The fever broke by afternoon. She fell back asleep. Silas sat watching her. Warren Hale's words echoed in his head. Cursed. Death wearing an innocent face. He'd heard that kind of talk before. Superstition dressed up as reason, grief looking for something to blame. The frontier was full of people who'd rather believe in curses than admit the world was random and cruel for no reason at all. But something about Warren had been worse than simple superstition. The man had been calm, rational, convinced, and he'd said this isn't over. Silas got up and checked his ammunition. 12 rounds for the rifle, maybe 20 for the pistol he rarely carried. Powder and shot for reloading, but that took time he might not have. Not enough. He moved to the window, looking out at the forest. Somewhere out there, Warren Hale was either riding away for good or circling back with friends. Silas bet on the second option. Men who tried to kill children didn't give up easy. He looked back at Elena sleeping in his bed. 24 hours ago, he'd been alone. Just him and the mountains and the silence he preferred. Now he had a child, a responsibility, a target on his back, and absolutely no idea what he was doing. Hell, he said to the empty cabin. Then he started fortifying the door. 3 days passed like held breath. Silas slept in shifts, rifle always loaded, one ear trained on the world outside. Every creak of settling timber made his hand move toward the weapon. Every gust of wind sounded like footsteps in snow. The exhaustion built behind his eyes, heavy and constant, but he didn't let himself sink too deep into sleep. Couldn't afford to. Elena's fever came and went. Sometimes she'd sleep peacefully for hours. Other times she'd wake screaming, face flushed red, body burning hot enough that Silas worried about permanent damage. He'd strip her down to bare skin, wrap her in cool, wet cloths, force willow bark tea between her lips while she fought him. Then the fever would break and she'd go limp in his arms, soaked with sweat, breathing shallow. He was terrified every time, had no idea what he was doing, just kept trying things until something worked. On the fourth morning, she woke up different. The fever was gone completely. Her eyes tracked him when he moved around the cabin, and when he picked her up to check her temperature, she didn't cry, just looked at him with those silver-gray eyes like she was trying to figure him out. "Better?" he asked. She blinked. "Yeah, me too." He made mush from ground oats and water, added a little sugar from his dwindling supply. She ate maybe half before turning her face away. Progress. Yesterday she wouldn't eat at all. Outside, fresh snow had fallen overnight. No tracks, no signs of Warren Hale or anyone else. But that didn't mean much. A smart man would wait. Let the trapper's guard drop. Let winter do some of the work. Silas wasn't dropping his guard. He spent the morning reinforcing the cabin's weak points, nailed extra boards across the window shutters, moved his supply trunk in front of the door as a barricade, counted ammunition again, and didn't like the number any better than before. Checked his powder horn. Still half full, but powder went fast in a real fight. Elena watched him work from the bed, wrapped in blankets, not making much sound. Too quiet for a child that age. Most babies he'd seen, admittedly not many, were louder, always crying or babbling or making noise. This one just watched, like she'd learned early that quiet meant survival. That thought made something twist in his chest. "You hungry again?" he asked around noon. She didn't respond. Probably didn't understand words yet, but she looked at him when he spoke, so that was something. He made more mush. This time she ate most of it, made a mess of her face and hands. He cleaned her up with a wet cloth, awkward and clumsy, probably doing it wrong. She didn't seem to mind. When he set her back down, she reached for him, just extended both arms, hands opening and closing. Universal baby language for pick-me-up. Silas hesitated. He had work to do, needed to check the trap line again, even though going out there meant leaving her alone. Needed to split more firewood, needed to... She made a sound. Not crying, just a small noise of frustration. He picked her up. She immediately settled against his chest, head tucking under his chin, one hand grabbing his shirt. Her breathing slowed, relaxed. Silas stood there holding her, feeling that tectonic shift again. This was a mistake. Had to be. He'd spent 15 years building walls specifically to prevent this. Attachment was weakness. Caring meant vulnerability. You didn't survive the frontier by collecting responsibilities you couldn't afford. But her hand gripped his shirt like he was the only solid thing in a world that had tried to kill her, and he couldn't put her down. "Hell," he muttered. She made a small, contented sound. He walked to the window, looked out at the white wilderness. Somewhere out there, Warren Hale was planning something. Silas could feel it, the way you felt storms before they arrived. Your uncle's coming back, he told Elena quietly, probably bringing friends, men with guns who think you're cursed, think you're death walking around in baby skin. She didn't respond, just breathed against his chest. I've got maybe 12 rounds and some bad ideas, Silas continued. No law within 50 miles, no help coming, just me and you and a cabin that won't stop determined men. Outside, a raven landed on a pine branch, black against white snow. Smart thing would be to take you down to Fort McKinley, Silas said. Hand you over to the territorial marshal. Let law sort it out. That's what smart people do. The raven cawed once and flew away. Problem is, law takes time, and your uncle strikes me as the impatient type. You'd end up in some orphan house while they investigated. And orphan houses... He stopped, didn't finish that thought. Elena shifted in his arms, getting comfortable. So I guess we're doing this the stupid way, Silas said. For the first time in 4 days, he felt something close to certainty. He set Elena back on the bed, made sure she was warm and safe. Then he grabbed his rifle and went outside. The cold hit like a physical force. Clear sky today, sun bright but providing no warmth. His breath fogged in front of him. Every sound carried in the stillness, the crunch of his boots, the distant crack of ice on the creek, the whisper of wind through pine needles. He scanned the tree line. Nothing moved. No tracks in the fresh snow except his own from earlier. But they'd come. Maybe today. Maybe tonight. Maybe next week. But they'd come. Silas spent 2 hours preparing the area around the cabin, cut sight lines through brush so he'd have clear shots, marked distances in his head, 50 yards to that boulder, 75 to the fallen log, 100 to where the trail emerged from the trees, scouted fallback positions, identified cover. Military thinking from a war he tried not to remember. When he went back inside, Elena was crying, not the desperate screaming from before, just regular crying, uncomfortable or hungry or lonely crying. He picked her up, changed her cloth diaper, fumbling through it, probably doing it wrong again, and made more food. She ate, stopped crying, fell asleep in his arms. Silas sat by the fire holding her, rifle propped beside him. Outside, the sun tracked west toward the mountains. Darkness came early this time of year. Night was when they'd come, if they were smart. He waited. The fire burned low. He added wood, keeping it going but not too bright. Bright fires made you blind to what was outside. Midnight came and went. Elena slept. Silas dozed in the chair, that shallow combat sleep where part of your brain never shut off. Then the dog started barking. Silas was on his feet before fully awake, rifle in hand. The barking came from the north, maybe a quarter-mile away. Multiple dogs, hunting hounds by the sound, tracking. "Damn it!" Silas said. He grabbed his coat, checked the rifle, looked at Elena sleeping on the bed. Couldn't take her outside. Too cold. Too dangerous. Couldn't leave her here if the cabin got breached. No good options. He barricaded the door from outside, wedging timber across it. If they got past him, they'd have to break through. That would buy time. Maybe enough. Then he moved into position behind the woodpile, rifle aimed at the trail. The dogs got louder. Then men's voices, low and careful. "Trail leads straight here. You sure?" "Dogs don't lie. Someone's been walking this line regular. Fresh tracks under the new snow." "Could be anyone." "Could be, but it ain't." Silas watched the tree line. 4 shapes emerged from the darkness. 3 men on foot, 1 mounted. The dogs, 2 of them, big hunting hounds, strained at their leashes, pulling toward the cabin. The mounted figure was Warren Hale. The other 3 were hired guns. You could tell by the way they moved, spread out, weapons ready. Not farmers or trappers. Men who knew violence. They stopped 50 yards out. Warren dismounted, handed his reins to one of the men, walked forward alone, stopping at the edge of firelight. "Trapper," he called out, "I know you're there. I can see smoke from your chimney, smell your coffee." Silas said nothing. "I brought friends this time," Warren continued. "Men who understand the situation, who know what needs to be done." One of the hired guns spoke up, younger man, nervous energy. "Boss said you got a kid in there, that right?" "Don't answer him," another voice said. Older, calmer. "Talk just gives away position." "Smart. These weren't amateurs. Here's how this works, Warren said. You hand over the child, we leave. Simple transaction. No one needs to die tonight. Silas stayed silent, watching. Or we come in and take her, Warren said. Your choice, but we're not leaving without her. The wind picked up, swirling snow between them. I'm giving you to the count of 10, Warren said. Then my men start shooting. 1. She's a baby, Silas called out. Warren stopped counting. Excuse me? I said she's a baby, year old, can't even walk yet, and you're out here with guns and dogs like she's dangerous. She is dangerous. She's a child. She's cursed. She's got a fever that just broke and eats mush and cries when she's scared. That's what she is. Warren took a step closer. You weren't there. You didn't see what happened to my family. My sister died in blood and screaming. My brother crushed under a falling tree. Accident, they called it. But the tree had stood for 100 years until the day after that thing was born. My mother wasted away from sickness that had no name. Everything we touched turned to ruin. That's grief talking, Silas said, not reason. This is reason. Warren's voice hardened. That child carries death. I've seen it, and I won't let her destroy anyone else. So you'll destroy her instead. If that's what it takes. Silas adjusted his grip on the rifle. Can't let you do that. Can't stop me. 3 of your boys against 1 of me, Silas said. But I'm behind cover with a rifle, and you're standing in the open. I drop you first. Then probably 1 more before your friends get smart and run. You willing to bet your life on those odds? Warren didn't move. You'd kill for her. If I have to. Why? She's nothing to you. A stranger you pulled from a river. Why die for that? Silas thought about the question. Didn't have a good answer. Just knew something in him had changed when her hand grabbed his shirt. Because someone has to, he said finally. Warren stared at him across the snowy distance, then turned to his men. He's alone. 1 rifle, 3 of us. We spread out, come at him from different angles. He can't watch everything. The younger gun shifted nervously. Boss, I ain't signed up for killing babies. We're not killing babies, we're ending something that shouldn't exist. That's just words for the same thing. You want your pay or not? The young gun hesitated. Yeah, but then you do what I hired you for. The older gun spoke up, voice flat. Your uncle's right, boy. We signed on. We finished the job. The third man hadn't spoken yet, just checked his pistol. They started moving, spreading out like Warren said. The older gun went left, young one right, third straight up the middle. Warren stayed back with the horses and dogs. Silas tracked the older gun through his sights. Most dangerous of the 3, moved like someone who'd done this before, but the young one was unpredictable. Scared men did stupid things. Last chance, Silas called out. Turn around, leave. Nobody dies tonight. No response. They kept coming. Silas lined up his shot on the older gun. 50 yards now. Easy range. He could drop him clean, swing to the next target before they got organized. His finger touched the trigger. Behind him, inside the cabin, Elena started crying. The sound carried in the cold air, high and frightened. The cry of something that knew danger was close. Warren heard it too. She knows, he said, almost to himself. She knows what's coming. The older gun was 40 yards out now, pistol drawn, looking for Silas's position. Elena's crying got louder. Silas couldn't look back, couldn't take his eyes off the threat. But every cry felt like a hook in his chest, pulling. 35 yards. The older gun stopped, raised his pistol, aiming in Silas's general direction. See ya, trapper, the man said. Silas fired first. The shot cracked across the valley, echo rolling off the mountains. The older gun went down, clutching his shoulder, pistol falling into snow. The other 2 dove for cover. Silas worked the bolt, chambered another round, swung toward the young gun who'd gone behind a tree. Couldn't see him anymore. Frank's hit, someone yelled. The third man, checking on the older gun. I can see that, Warren snapped. Keep moving. He's bleeding bad, boss. Needs help. He'll get help after we finish this. Inside the cabin, Elena's crying reached a pitch of pure terror. The young gun broke from cover, running, not at Silas, but away, heading back toward the horses. Where are you going? Warren yelled. I'm done, the young gun called back. This ain't worth dying over. The third man was dragging the older gun backward, leaving a blood trail in the snow. I'm out too. Frank needs a doctor. Warren wheeled on them. I paid you. Keep your money. I ain't dying for your family ghosts. They got the wounded man onto a horse, young gun already mounted. Warren stood there alone, watching his hired help ride away into darkness. Silas kept his rifle trained on him. Guess it's just you now, Silas said. Warren looked at the cabin, at the trail of blood in the snow, at Silas behind the woodpile. This isn't over, he said quietly. So you keep saying. I'll come back. Next time with more men. Better men. You do that. Warren mounted his horse. The dogs whined, confused, wanting to keep tracking. He yanked their leashes hard enough to hurt. You're protecting Death, Warren said. And when she destroys you like she destroyed my family, don't say you weren't warned. He rode away. Silas waited, rifle ready, until the sound of hoofbeats faded completely, then waited some more. Could be a trick, Warren circling back, or the hired guns waiting in ambush. But the night stayed quiet, except for wind and Elena's crying. He finally lowered the rifle, hands shaking from adrenaline crash, looked at the blood in the snow where the older gun had fallen. He'd aimed for the shoulder, trying not to kill, but a shoulder shot could still bleed fatal if it hit the wrong spot. Not my problem, he told himself. They came here. They made the choice. But his hand still shook. Inside, Elena screamed. Silas crossed to the cabin, removed the timber barricade, opened the door. She was on the bed right where he'd left her, face red, tears streaming. The blankets had gotten twisted around her. She fought them, making everything worse. He set the rifle down and picked her up. She immediately grabbed onto him, face buried against his chest, crying hard. Her whole body shook. Could be cold. Could be fear. Probably both. I know, Silas said, holding her close. I know. Scared me too. He walked in slow circles, letting her cry it out. After a while, the sobs turned to hiccups, then just shaky breathing. We're okay, he told her. We're okay now. But they weren't okay. Warren would come back, he'd said so, and next time he'd bring better men, more of them. Or maybe he'd just burn the cabin while they slept. Silas couldn't defend this place forever, not alone, not with a child to protect. He needed help. Didn't want help. Hadn't asked anyone for anything in 15 years. But wanting wasn't the same as needing. Elena fell asleep against him, exhausted from crying. He stood there holding her, making decisions he didn't like. At dawn, he'd head down the mountain, find the territorial marshal at Fort McKinley, report what happened. Get law involved before this turned into a massacre. It meant trusting people, meant asking for help, meant admitting he couldn't do this alone. Every instinct he had screamed against it. But instincts were for keeping yourself alive, and this wasn't about himself anymore. He looked down at Elena sleeping in his arms. Hell of a thing, kid, he said quietly. You've been here less than a week and already turned my life inside out. She didn't respond, just breathed, soft and even. Silas sat back down in the chair and let himself drift into that shallow combat sleep, rifle across his lap, Elena safe in his arms. Outside, the first gray light of dawn touched the mountains. He'd wait for full sunrise. Then they'd go. But sleep came harder than expected. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Warren's face, heard that absolute conviction in his voice. She carries death. Silas had seen fanaticism before, during the war mostly. True believers were the most dangerous kind of enemy. They didn't surrender, didn't negotiate, couldn't be reasoned with. And Warren Hale was a true believer. Morning came slow and cold. Silas fed Elena, changed her, wrapped her in every warm thing he could find, made a sling from rope and blanket to carry her against his chest, loaded his rifle, packed ammunition, filled a canteen with water that would probably freeze before noon, stood in the doorway looking at his cabin. 15 years here. Built it with his own hands, every log cut and placed, every chink filled, his refuge from a world that had taken too much. Now he was leaving it, might not come back. Warren could burn it while they were gone, or other trappers might claim it as abandoned. Property rights were fluid this far from civilization. Didn't matter. Nothing in there mattered more than the child strapped to his chest. He closed the door behind him and started walking. The trail down to Fort McKinley was 12 miles through mountain passes and frozen creek crossings. Usually took him 5 hours when he traveled light. With Elena and the extra weight, probably 7 or 8. If the weather held. If nothing went wrong. If Warren didn't catch them in the open. Too many ifs. He walked anyway. The morning was clear and brutally cold, the kind of cold that made every breath burn. Elena stayed quiet against his chest, wrapped tight, just her face visible. Her silver gray eyes watched the world pass by with that too serious expression. "You seen this?" Silas asked her. "That's Red Hollow Valley. Those mountains to the north, that's Sawback Ridge. Creek down there is Frostwater, same one that tried to kill you. And that trail we're following, that leads to people. Lots of people. More than you've probably ever seen." She blinked at him. "Not sure what we'll find when we get there," he continued. "Marshall might help, might not. Might say you're better off in an orphan house, but we'll deal with that when we get there." The trail descended through pine forest where snow had piled deep between trees. Silas broke trail, each step sinking 8 or 10 inches. Exhausting work. His shoulders started aching within the first mile. The old injury protesting. He ignored it, kept walking. Around noon, he stopped to rest, found a fallen log, brushed snow off, sat down carefully so he didn't jostle Elena, gave her water from the canteen, ate some of the hardtack he'd brought. The silence in the forest was absolute. No wind, no birds, just stillness. Too still. Silas's hand moved to his rifle. Then he heard it. Faint. Distant. But definitely there. Dogs barking, coming from upslope, from the direction of his cabin. Warren had brought more men. Either that, or he'd never left. Just circled back after Silas headed down the mountain. Smart. If you couldn't take a fortified position, wait for the enemy to leave it. The barking got louder. They were tracking him. Silas stood up, checked the trail ahead. 3 miles to Fort McKinley, but it was all downhill from here. If he pushed hard, maybe 2 hours, but the dogs would catch him before that. They were faster in snow. And Elena slowed him down. He could fight, find a defensible spot, make a stand. But the same problem remained. One rifle, limited ammunition, and he couldn't watch every direction while protecting Elena. Or he could run. He ran, not full out. That would exhaust him in minutes. But a fast walk, pushing as hard as he could manage without falling. The trail was treacherous. Ice under snow, hidden rocks, deadfalls covered by drifts. He nearly went down twice in the first 10 minutes. Behind him, the dogs got closer. They'd found his trail. Now it was just a matter of time. Elena started crying. The movement and cold and his fear, all of it getting to her. "Not now," Silas said through gritted teeth. "Please, kid, not now." But she cried harder. The sound carried, made it easier for the dogs to track, easier for Warren's men to follow. Silas kept moving. No choice. Stop and die. Keep going and maybe die, but at least you tried. His breath came hard now, lungs burning, legs shaking, the shoulder screaming. Elena's crying reached that pitch that went straight through your skull. Behind him, close now, men's voices. "I hear something ahead. The baby. Has to be. How far?" "Close, real close." Silas broke into a stumbling run. Discipline abandoned. Just animal panic now. Had to get distance. Had to... His foot hit ice. Went down hard, twisting to protect Elena. Hit the snow sideways, pain exploding through his shoulder and ribs. Elena screamed. Silas tried to get up. Couldn't. The shoulder had finally given out completely. Useless arm hanging limp. He rolled onto his back, fumbling for the rifle one-handed. Found it. Chambered around. Waited. The dogs came first. Big hunting hounds, all teeth and noise, but leashed, held back by their handlers. Then men. 4 of them. Different faces than last night. Warren had found new hired guns, and behind them, Warren Hale himself, mounted on his horse, looking down at Silas in the snow. "Told you this wasn't over," Warren said. Silas raised the rifle one-handed, awkward, poor angle, but he aimed at Warren's center mass. "Come any closer, I shoot." "You're in no position to threaten anyone, Trapper. Still got one good arm, still got bullets." Warren dismounted, walked forward slowly. "You can shoot me. Probably will. But my men will shoot you. And that child dies anyway. Is that what you want? Silas's hand shook, arm tired. Couldn't hold the aim steady. Elena cried against his chest, her face pressed into his coat. Just give her to me, Warren said quietly. End this. You fought well, did more than anyone expected. But it's over now. No? She'll die quick, I promise, won't suffer. More mercy than she'd get from winter or wolves. She's not dying at all. Then what's your plan? Bleed out in the snow while she freezes? You can barely stand, can't protect her, can't even protect yourself. Warren was right, and Silas knew it. The rifle wavered. Elena's crying softened to whimpers, like she was running out of strength. Last chance, Warren said. Hand her over. Walk away. Live. Silas looked at him, at the hired guns behind him, at the dogs straining at their leashes. Then he looked down at Elena. Her silver gray eyes looked back at him, trusting, depending on him. He'd pulled her from the river, fed her, kept her warm, fought for her. But maybe Warren was right. Maybe this was as far as he could take her. His arm lowered, just an inch, exhaustion winning. Then a voice cut across the valley. Territorial Marshal, everyone stay exactly where you are. The voice came from upslope, maybe 30 yards back, hidden in the tree line. Authority in it, command that made men freeze. Warren turned, hand dropping to his pistol. I said, stay where you are, the voice repeated. That includes you, Hale. A figure emerged from the pines. Tall man, maybe 50, wearing a heavy coat with a badge pinned to the chest. 2 deputies flanked him, both carrying rifles. Territorial Marshal Jonah Reed. Silas had seen him exactly twice in 15 years. Once when he'd first come to the valley, registering his claim. Second time 3 years back when a trapper went missing and Reed came looking. Hard man, fair from what Silas had heard. But hard. Marshal, Warren said, recovering fast, this doesn't concern you. Man lying in the snow with a baby, surrounded by armed thugs, Reed said, walking closer. That concerns me plenty. This is a family matter. The child is my niece. This man kidnapped her. That how you see it, Mercer? Reed asked, looking at Silas. Silas lowered the rifle completely. Found her in the river, pulled her out. He came trying to take her back, not to raise her, to kill her. Warren's face darkened. That's a lie. Then why'd you bring 4 armed men and hunting dogs to collect a baby? Reed asked. That seemed like normal guardian behavior to you? She's dangerous. She's a year old. She's cursed. My family died because of her. Everyone who gets close to her suffers. Reed looked at Warren for a long moment, then sighed. You actually believe that? I know it. You know grief, Reed said quietly. I lost family too. Makes a man look for reasons where there aren't any. Makes him want something to blame besides bad luck and hard country. This isn't grief. This is you hiring guns to kill a child, Reed interrupted, which is several kinds of illegal. You boys know that? He looked at the hired men. Accessory to attempted murder of a minor. That's hanging offense in this territory. The hired guns shifted nervously. One of them spoke up. We didn't know about no killing. He said we were collecting his property. Property? Reed repeated. Anyone else hear him call a child property? The deputies both nodded. Well then, Reed turned back to Warren. You're under arrest. Drop your weapon. Slow. Warren didn't move. I have legal claim. Blood right. The law says I arrest people who threaten children. Now drop the weapon before I add resisting to the charges. For a moment, it could have gone either way. Warren's hand stayed near his pistol. His hired men looked ready to bolt. The dog sensed the tension, growling low. Then Warren's shoulders dropped. He unbuckled his gun belt, let it fall into the snow. Good choice, Reed said. To his deputies, get him and his friends secured. We'll sort this out at Fort McKinley. While the deputies dealt with Warren's men, Reed approached Silas, knelt down in the snow beside him. You hurt bad? Shoulders out, Silas said. Ribs may be cracked. Been better. Can you walk? Have to. Can't exactly stay here. Reed looked at Elena, who'd stopped crying and was watching everything with wide eyes. This the girl from the river? Yeah. She hurt? Cold, scared, otherwise okay. Reed reached out and Elena immediately shrank back against Silas. Easy, Silas said. He's trying to help. But Elena wouldn't look at Reed, just buried her face in Silas's coat. She knows you, Reed observed. Been taking care of her almost a week now. You know anything about babies? Not a damn thing. Learning as I go. Reed almost smiled. That's usually how it works. He stood, offered his hand. Come on, let's get you both somewhere warm. Silas took the offered hand with his good arm. Reed pulled him up. Pain exploded through his shoulder and ribs. He nearly went back down, but Reed caught him. Easy, Deputy Cole, get over here. Help Mercer walk. One of the deputies came over. Young man, maybe 25, clean-shaven and nervous. He got under Silas's good shoulder, took some of the weight. I can walk myself, Silas protested. Sure you can, Reed said, but you don't have to. That's why we have deputies. They started down the trail. Slow going. Every step hurt. But Elena stayed quiet against his chest, and that made it bearable. Behind them, the other deputy had Warren and his hired men in a line, hands tied, walking single file. Warren stared at Silas's back with something beyond anger, something closer to betrayal, like Silas had personally wronged him by not letting him murder a child. Fort McKinley appeared around a bend 2 hours later. Not much of a fort anymore. Used to be a military outpost back when the territory was being settled. Now it was just a collection of buildings, general store, boarding house, marshal's office, maybe 30 permanent residents, plus whoever was passing through. Civilization by local standards. Reed led them straight to his office. Small building, one main room with a desk and chairs, 2 cells in back. Wood stove in the corner throwing heat. Silas had never been so happy to see a stove in his life. Deputy Cole helped him into a chair. Elena immediately started crying again, tired, cold, overwhelmed. There's a woman 2 doors down, Reed said. Maeve Carter, runs the general store, has 3 kids of her own. She can probably help with the baby while we sort this out. She's not leaving my sight, Silas said. Mercer. I pulled her from the river, kept her alive. She stays with me. Reed looked at him for a long moment. You know how this looks, right? Mountain Hermit shows up with a baby, claims he rescued her, won't let her out of his sight. That's suspicious under normal circumstances. These aren't normal circumstances. No, they're not. Reed sat down behind his desk. But I still need to investigate, talk to people, figure out what's true and what's not. Warren admitted he tried to kill her. You heard him. I heard him say she was cursed, which is insane, but not technically a confession to attempted murder. He threw her in the river. You got proof of that? Witnesses? Silas didn't answer. They both knew there were no witnesses. Here's what I've got, Reed said. A child of uncertain parentage in the custody of a man who lives alone and has no experience with children. An uncle claiming blood rights and making wild accusations about curses, and no clear evidence of who's telling the truth. So what happens to her? That depends. Reed leaned back in his chair. Tell me everything. From the beginning. Don't leave anything out. So Silas told it. The trapline, the crying, the frozen creek and black water. Nearly drowning. Getting Elena back to the cabin. The fever. Warren's first visit. The second attack with hired guns. All of it. Reed listened without interrupting. When Silas finished, the marshal sat quiet for a while, thinking. You ever been married, Mercer? He finally asked. Once. Long time ago. Kids? Silas's jaw tightened. Had a son. Died when he was 3. Fever took him. I'm sorry. Was 15 years back. Doesn't make it easier. Reed glanced at Elena, who'd fallen asleep against Silas's chest. That why you saved her? Reminded you of your boy? No, saved her because she needed saving. That's all. You realize what you're asking for here. If I rule in your favor, you're stuck with a child. Permanently. That's not something you can undo when it gets hard. I know. You live alone in the mountains. No wife. No family. No support. How exactly do you plan to raise a little girl in those conditions? Silas didn't have a good answer, hadn't thought that far ahead, just been focused on keeping her alive day to day. I'll figure it out, he said. That's not good enough. The Territorial Orphan Services will want better than, I'll figure it out. She's not going to an orphan house. That might not be your choice. I'm making it my choice. Reed rubbed his face. You're a stubborn son of a bitch. You know that? So I've been told. Let me talk to Warren. Get his side. Then I'll decide what happens next. Reed stood and headed toward the cells and back. Silas sat there holding Elena, exhausted down to his bones. His shoulder throbbed. His ribs hurt with every breath. But Elena slept peacefully, her face soft in sleep, one hand gripping his shirt. Worth it, he thought. Whatever comes next, this was worth it. From the back he heard voices. Reed talking to Warren. Couldn't make out words, but the tone was clear. Reed pushing, Warren defending, back and forth, then louder. You threw a baby in a river, Hale. That's attempted murder however you dress it up. I was protecting my family. From what? A child? From a curse. There's no such thing as curses. There's just bad luck and people too scared to admit life is random. You weren't there. You didn't see... I've seen plenty. War, disease, accidents that make no sense. And you know what I learned? Bad things happen to good people for no reason at all. That's life. Blaming a baby doesn't change it. Silence. Then Warren, quieter. She killed my sister. Childbirth killed your sister. Same thing that's killed 1,000 women in this territory. It's not fair, it's not right, but it's not the baby's fault. My brother was a logger. Loggers die. Trees fall on them. Saws slip. That's the job. Not a curse, just risk. More silence. You need help, Hale, Reed said finally. Professional help. But first you're going to stand trial for attempted murder. And if I have my way, you'll spend a long time thinking about what grief turned you into. Reed came back out, looked at Silas. He really believes it, Reed said. The curse. He's not lying or exaggerating. He genuinely thinks that child is dangerous. Doesn't make him right. No, but it makes him tragic. He's not evil, just broken. Broken men can still kill. True enough. Reed sat back down. Here's where we stand. Warren's going to trial, his hired men too, though they'll probably get lighter sentences since they didn't actually do anything yet. You and the girl, that's more complicated. Why? Because legally, Warren does have a claim. He's blood family. You're not. And territorial law favors blood. Even when blood tried to kill her? I believe you, but belief isn't evidence. We'd need to prove intent, which means a trial, which means lawyers, which means months, maybe years. She doesn't have years. I know. That's why I'm going to do something that's probably going to get me in trouble. Reed pulled out paper and pen, started writing. I'm issuing a temporary custody order, puts the girl in your care while we sort this out legally, gives you authority to make decisions for her, keeps Warren away. That's it? That's simple? Hell no, it's not simple. This order's only good in this territory. If Warren appeals to federal court, I can't do anything. And there's going to be questions, investigations, people checking on you, making sure you're fit to care for her. I can handle that. Can you? Because if you fail, if she gets hurt or sick or you decide it's too hard, she goes into the orphan system. And once she's in, getting her out is nearly impossible. Silas looked down at Elena. She'd woken up, those silver-gray eyes watching him. I won't fail, he said. Reed finished writing, signed the paper with a flourish. You better not, because I'm putting my reputation on the line here. If this goes bad, we both pay for it. He handed the paper to Silas. Official looking, seals and signatures, the words temporary custody clear at the top. She needs a name, Reed said. For the record. Elena. Elena what? Silas hesitated. Giving her his last name felt presumptuous, but she needed something. Elena Mercer, he said. Reed wrote it down. Relationship to guardian? I don't know what to put there. Put father. I'm not her father. You pulled her from a river, kept her alive, fought armed men to protect her. Sounds like a father to me. Reed looked up. Besides, it'll make the paperwork easier if you're listed as family. Otherwise, every bureaucrat between here and the capital will question why we gave custody to a stranger. Silas thought about his son. Dead 15 years, but never forgotten. The fever that took him in 2 days. The small grave on a hillside he'd never visited again. Father, he said quietly. Reed wrote it down. Signed again. Dated it. There, it's done. Elena Mercer is now in your custody pending legal resolution. He handed the paper to Silas, who stared at it like it might bite him. Thank you, Silas said. Don't thank me yet. The hard part's just starting. Reed stood. Now let's get that shoulder looked at. Doctor's probably drunk by now, but he's better than nothing. The doctor was indeed drunk, but functional drunk, not falling down drunk, so that was something. He was a rail-thin man named Patterson who smelled like whiskey and failure. His office was above the general store, one room with a table and basic supplies. He took one look at Silas's shoulder and winced. That's dislocated bad. Gonna hurt like hell when I set it. Just do it, Silas said. You want something for the pain? I got laudanum. No. Need to stay clear-headed. Patterson shrugged. Your funeral. He had Silas lie on the table, positioned his arms. Elena had been taken by Reed's deputy, despite Silas's protests, just for a few minutes. She was crying somewhere in another room. The sound made Silas's chest tight. On 3, Patterson said. 1. He yanked before finishing the count. Silas's shoulder popped back into socket with a sound like breaking wood. Pain whited out his vision. He might have yelled. Wasn't sure. When he could see again, Patterson was wrapping his shoulder and arm in a sling. Keep it immobilized for 2 weeks minimum. Move it before then, you'll dislocate it again. Ribs are probably cracked too. He pressed on Silas's side. There? Fresh pain. Silas nodded. Nothing to do for those except rest. No heavy lifting, no fighting, no doing anything stupid. That's going to be a problem, Silas said. Why? Because I've got a cabin to get back to and a baby to care for. Neither of those involves rest. Patterson finished the wrapping. Then you're going to heal wrong. Shoulder'll never be right again. Ribs might puncture a lung, but that's your choice. He was right, of course, but there weren't any good choices. Just bad ones and worse ones. Deputy Cole brought Elena back. She was still crying, face red and wet. But when she saw Silas, she reached for him. Silas took her with his good arm. She immediately settled, face pressed into his chest. She only stopped crying when she could see the door you went through, the deputy said, like she was waiting for you to come back. She's been through a lot, Silas said. So have you, seems like. They went back downstairs. The general store was closing, late afternoon already, sun getting low. A woman was locking up. Mid-30s, brown hair pulled back, practical dress, worn hands that said she worked for a living. Maeve Carter, Reed's wife. She looked at Silas holding Elena and her expression softened. That's the river baby? She asked. That's what they're calling her? News travels fast in small towns. Half the territory probably knows by now. She came closer, peering at Elena. Poor thing, she looks terrified. Can you blame her? No, I can't. Maeve reached out slowly, let Elena see her hand before touching. My name's Maeve. I'm going to be your friend if you'll let me. Elena watched her warily but didn't cry. You have children? Silas asked. 3. 2 boys and a girl. Youngest is 5 now. It's been a while since I had a baby in the house. I don't know what I'm doing, Silas admitted. With her, any of it. Nobody does. You just figure it out as you go. She smiled. But having help makes it easier. If you need supplies, clothes, food, whatever, I've got them. And if you need advice, I've got that too. Why would you help me? You don't know me. I know you pulled a baby from a frozen river. That's enough. Reed came out of his office. Everything settled? For now, Silas said, but I need to get back to my cabin. Warren knows where it is. Might try to burn it. He's in a cell. He's not burning anything. He's got money. Can hire someone else. I'll post a deputy up there. Keep watch. Make sure nobody bothers your place. For how long? Until the trial. 3 weeks, maybe 4? That's a long time to impose. It's not an imposition. It's my job. Reed looked at Elena. She needs warm clothes. Better than what she's got. Maeve, can you help with that? Already planning on it. Maeve reached out again, and this time Elena grabbed her finger. Smart girl. You know who your friends are. Can she stay here? Reed asked Silas. In town, I mean. Until the trial's done. Boarding house has rooms. You'd be safer than up in the mountains. Silas looked around the general store, at the buildings visible through the windows, at the people walking past. Too many people, too much noise. I can't, he said. I can't be around this many folks. Not for weeks. You might have to. I can't. Reed studied him. The war? Silas didn't answer. Didn't need to. All right, Reed said finally. But you stay within a day's ride of town. Check in once a week. And if anything happens, anything at all, you get word to me immediately. I can do that. They worked out details, supplies, schedule. What to do if Warren made bail? Unlikely, but possible. What to do if federal marshals got involved? More likely. What to do if Elena got sick? Too many contingencies, too many things that could go wrong. But there was a path forward now. Narrow and uncertain, but there. As they were leaving, Maeve pressed a bundle into Silas's arms. Clothes for the baby, some toys, and a book about caring for children. It's not much, but it's a start. I don't know how to thank you. Take care of that little girl. That's thanks enough. They left Fort McKinley as the sun touched the western mountains. Silas rode a horse Reed had loaned him. Riding one-handed was awkward, but manageable. Elena sat in front of him, wrapped in new blankets, watching the world with those serious eyes. The trail back to his cabin would take most of the night. Normally he'd camp, but with Elena and his injuries, he pushed through. The stars came out, brilliant and cold. Elena fell asleep against him, breathing soft and even. Silas's shoulder hurt, his ribs hurt, everything hurt, but Elena was safe, legally in his custody, protected, at least temporarily, from Warren and his madness. Small victories. He thought about the paper in his pocket, the one that said Elena Mercer and father. He'd never wanted to be a father again, had sworn off it after losing his son. Too much pain, too much risk, but here he was. The cabin appeared near midnight, dark and cold. The deputy Reed promised wasn't there yet, probably coming up tomorrow. Silas dismounted carefully, took Elena inside. The fire was dead. The cold had settled deep into the walls. But it was home. He got a fire going one-handed. Clumsy work, took 3 times longer than normal. Fed Elena, changed her, put her in the bed with extra blankets, then collapsed into the chair, too exhausted to sleep properly. Just closed his eyes and let the darkness take him. He woke to Elena crying, fed her, changed her, put her back down. Woke again 2 hours later, same routine, again 2 hours after that. By dawn, he understood why Maeve had smiled when she talked about babies. They didn't let you sleep. They didn't care that you were exhausted or injured or had no idea what you were doing. They just needed, constantly. He made coffee, burned it, drank it anyway. Elena watched him from the bed, those silver-gray eyes tracking his every move. "You're a lot of work, kid," he told her. She blinked at him. "Worth it, though." He surprised himself by meaning it. The deputy showed up around noon, young man, different from the one yesterday. He introduced himself as Mason, set up camp 50 yards from the cabin, promised to stay until Reed sent word otherwise. "Anyone comes up that trail, you'll know about it," Mason said. "I'm a light sleeper." Silas thanked him and went back inside. The days developed a rhythm. Wake with Elena crying, feed her, change her, play, if you could call it that. Mostly just letting her grab his fingers and babble. Feed her again, change her again. Try to do cabin work one-handed, fail at cabin work. Feed her, change her, sleep for 2 hours. Repeat. It was exhausting, relentless. And somehow in those repetitive moments, something shifted in Silas. He'd saved Elena because it was right, protected her because she needed protection. But now, caring for her day after day, watching her tiny personality emerge, the way she smiled when he picked her up, the way she cried when he left the room, the way she grabbed his face with both hands and stared at him like he was the entire world, he realized something terrifying. He loved her. Not duty, not obligation. Love. The kind that made your chest ache and your throat tight. The kind that made you willing to die. He'd felt it once before for his son, had buried it with the boy in that hillside grave, swore he'd never feel it again. But here it was. Unwelcome. Undeniable. 10 days after Fort McKinley, Deputy Mason came to the cabin looking worried. "Got word from the marshal," he said. "Warren made bail." Silas felt ice in his stomach. "How?" "Posted by someone in the Capitol. Lawyer, probably. He's out pending trial." "Where's he now?" "Don't know. Left Fort McKinley yesterday. Could be anywhere." "Could be coming here." "Could be. That's why I'm telling you." Silas looked at Elena playing on the floor with a carved wooden horse Maeve had sent. She laughed at something, the way the toy moved maybe, high, clear laugh that sounded like joy. "We need to leave," Silas said. Marshall thought you might say that. He wants you in Fort McKinley, says he can protect you better there. He also knows I can't stay in town. So what are you going to do? Silas looked out the window at the mountains, at the wilderness that had been his home for 15 years. I'm going to do what I should have done from the start, he said. I'm going to end this. Mason stared at him. End what, exactly? This. All of it. Warren, the threats, the waiting for him to make his next move. You can't just go kill a man who's out on bail. That's murder. I'm not talking about killing him. Silas picked up Elena, held her against his chest with his good arm. I'm talking about ending his delusion, making him see what he's really doing. And how exactly do you plan to do that? By talking to him, face to face, no guns, no threats, just two men and the truth. Mason shook his head, but that's suicide. He tried to kill you twice already. Third time might be different. Or it might be the one that works. Silas looked at Elena. She'd grabbed his shirt, was chewing on the fabric, drool running down her chin, completely oblivious to the danger surrounding her. I can't live like this, Silas said quietly. Looking over my shoulder, waiting for Warren to show up with more guns. Elena deserves better than a life lived in fear. So does you getting killed help her? No, but neither does hiding. Mason studied him for a long moment. You're serious about this? I am. Then you're an idiot, the deputy sighed. But I'll help, on one condition. What? I come with you, as witness. So if Warren does try something, there's someone to testify. Reed won't like you abandoning your post. Reed won't like you getting yourself killed either. At least this way someone's watching your back, Silas considered. Having a deputy present might actually help, made it harder for Warren to claim self-defense if things went bad. All right, he said, but Elena stays here, with someone trustworthy. I'll send word to town. Mrs. Carter will come up. She's been asking about the baby anyway. 2 hours later, Maeve arrived on horseback, a bag of supplies tied to her saddle. She took one look at Silas and shook her head. Jonah told me you'd do something stupid eventually. Didn't think it'd be this soon. I'm not being stupid. I'm being practical. Those aren't mutually exclusive. She dismounted, came over to look at Elena. Hello, sweetheart. Remember me? Elena looked at her, then back at Silas, uncertain. She's not going to like this, Silas said. Me leaving. She'll cry. They always do. But she'll be safe here with me. Maeve reached out. Come here, little one. Your papa needs to go do something brave and foolish, and we're going to wait here together. Silas handed Elena over. As soon as she left his arms, Elena started crying, reached back for him, face crumpling. I know, Maeve said gently, bouncing her. I know it's scary, but he'll be back, I promise. Elena's crying got louder. She twisted in Maeve's arms, trying to get back to Silas. It was like being stabbed. Go, Maeve said, before this gets harder. Silas forced himself to turn away, grabbed his coat, checked that his knife was on his belt. No rifle this time, no pistol, just the knife for emergencies. Mason was waiting outside with 2 horses. Behind them, Elena's crying carried through the cabin walls. You ready? Mason asked. No, Silas thought, but he mounted the horse anyway. They rode in silence for the first hour. The trail down from the cabin wound through dense pine forest where snow lay thick and untouched. Their horses' breath fogged in the cold air. Neither man spoke. Finally, Mason broke the silence. You got a plan beyond talk to him? Not really. That's comforting. You didn't have to come. Someone needs to keep you from getting killed. Might as well be me. Mason shifted in his saddle. What makes you think he'll even listen? Because he's not evil, just broken. There's a difference. Broken men do evil things all the time. Yeah, but they can also be fixed, or at least convinced to stop. Mason grunted. You got more faith in human nature than I do. They reached Fort McKinley by late afternoon. The town looked the same as before, small, rough, holding on against winter. Smoke rose from chimneys. A few people moved between buildings, bundled against cold. Reed was waiting at his office when they arrived. He didn't look happy. Mason sent word you were coming, told me your plan. The marshal crossed his arms. It's stupid. So everyone keeps saying, Because it is. Warren's out on bail because some lawyer in the Capitol believes his story, claims you kidnapped his niece, that you've manipulated everyone, including me. That's insane. Maybe, but it's gaining traction. There's talk of federal marshals getting involved, taking the case out of my hands. Silas felt cold that had nothing to do with weather. Can they do that? If they decide territorial authority isn't sufficient, yeah, they can do whatever they want. How long do I have? Week, maybe 2. Then this gets complicated in ways I can't control. So I need to resolve it before then. You need to stay alive before then. Warren's lawyer has already filed a motion to revoke my custody order. Claims you're unstable, dangerous, unfit to care for a child. Based on what? Based on you living alone in the mountains, never being around people, having no wife or family support. Reed paused. And based on your military record. Silas went still. How did they? Army keeps records. Someone requested yours. Found out about the dishonorable discharge, the incident in Virginia. That was 15 years ago. Doesn't matter. It's there. And Warren's lawyer is using it to paint you as violent and unstable. I was protecting my men. You shot a superior officer because he ordered us to burn a church with people inside, women and children. I know. I read the report. You were right to refuse. But the discharge stands, and now it's being used against you. Silas sat down heavily. So what do I do? You let me handle it. Stay out of sight. Don't give them more ammunition. Can't do that. Why not? Because I need to talk to Warren, face to face, before this gets any worse. Reed rubbed his face. You're determined to get yourself killed. I'm determined to end this. Those might be the same thing. The marshal walked to the window, looked out at the street. You know where Warren is? No? Boarding house, 3rd room on the left. Been there since making bail. You've been watching him. Of course I have. Man's a murder suspect. I don't just let him wander free. Reed turned back. But I can't stop you from talking to him. It's a public place. You're both citizens. Thank you. Don't thank me. If this goes bad, I'm arresting whoever's left standing. Silas stood, started for the door. Mercer, Reed called after him. That little girl needs you. Don't make her an orphan because you need to prove something. I'm not proving anything. I'm ending something. Let's hope you're right. The boarding house was a 2-story wooden structure that had seen better days. Paint peeling, shutters crooked, steps that creaked under weight. A sign out front said, "Rooms available," but half the letters had faded. Silas climbed the steps. Mason followed a few paces back, hand near his pistol. Inside, the lobby smelled like old food and mildew. A woman behind a desk looked up, saw the deputy, and pointed upstairs without being asked. 3rd on the left. He's in there. Silas climbed the stairs, each step feeling heavier than the last. At the top, he stood in front of the door, could hear movement inside, someone pacing. He knocked. The movement stopped. Who is it? Warren's voice cautious. Silas Mercer. Long silence. Then, you armed? Just a knife, not here to fight. Then why are you here? To talk. That's all. Another silence. Then the door opened. Warren looked worse than before, thinner, dark circles under his eyes, clothes rumpled like he'd slept in them, but his eyes were clear, focused. He looked at Silas, then past him to Mason standing at the stairs. Deputy's your witness? Something like that. Warren stepped back. Come in, but the knife stays visible. I see you reach for it. I'm jumping out the window. Fair enough. The room was small. Single bed, chair, washstand. Window overlooking the street. Warren's belongings were minimal. A bag in the corner, few clothes hanging on pegs. A man traveling light, ready to leave fast if needed. Warren sat on the bed. Silas took the chair. Mason stayed in the doorway. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Then Warren said, You here to convince me I'm wrong? I'm here to understand why you're right, in your mind. That surprised him. You want to understand? I want to know what you see when you look at Elena, because all I see is a baby who almost died and deserves a chance to live. Warren leaned back against the wall. You ever lose someone close to you? My son. Fever took him when he was 3. Then you know what it does, how it tears pieces out of you that never grow back. I know. My sister was the strongest person I ever met. survived things that would have killed most people. Then she got pregnant, and suddenly she was fragile, scared, like she knew something was coming. Warren's hands clenched. Labor lasted 2 days, 2 days of screaming. And when it was finally over, she was gone, and this thing was there instead. That thing is Elena. That thing killed her. Childbirth killed her. It happens. It's awful and unfair, but it's not murder. Then explain my brother. Explain how a tree that stood for 100 years fell on him the week after Elena was born. Explain the disease that took my mother. The fire that destroyed our mill. All of it happening within months of that child entering the world. Silas leaned forward. You want to know what I think? I'm listening. I think you loved your sister more than anything. And when she died, it broke something in you. Made you look for reasons where there weren't any. Made you need someone to blame because blaming random chance is too hard. That's not... Let me finish. Your brother was a logger. Dangerous job. Trees fall. Men die. Happens every day across this territory. Your mother was old. Disease finds the old and weak. The mill fire. Could have been anything. Faulty chimney, careless worker, lightning strike. None of it's connected except in your mind. Warren stood up. You weren't there. No. But I've been in war. Seen men die for no reason at all. Good men, bad men, lucky men, unlucky men. And you know what? There's no pattern, no curse, no divine plan, just chaos and people trying to make sense of it. Elena is different. Elena is a baby. She eats, she cries, she sleeps. That's all. She carries death. She carries your grief. And you can't let her go because that means accepting your sister's death meant nothing. That she died for no reason. That there's no one to punish, no one to blame. Warren's face flushed. You don't know anything about my grief. I know what it does. How it poisons everything. Makes you see threats that aren't there. I lived with it for years after my son died. Nearly let it kill me. How'd you stop it? I didn't. Just learned to live with it. Accepted that he died and I couldn't change it. Stopped looking for meaning in meaningless things. Warren sat back down, shoulders sagging. I can't do that. Why not? Because if there's no curse, no reason, then they all died for nothing, and I can't accept that. You don't have a choice. That's reality. People die. Life goes on, and killing Elena doesn't bring any of them back. It stops the curse. There is no curse. Silas's voice hardened. There's just a man so consumed by grief he's willing to murder a child to avoid facing truth. Warren looked up, eyes red. She took everything from me. No. Life took everything from you, and now you're trying to take everything from her. How is that justice? It's not justice. It's prevention. It's murder. Call it what you want, dress it up however you need to, but putting that baby in the river was attempted murder. Coming after her with guns was attempted murder. And every day you keep believing she's cursed is another day you're choosing murder over truth. Warren's hands shook. I don't know how to live with what happened. None of us do. We just keep breathing until it gets easier. Until grief becomes something we carry instead of something that carries us. And if it never gets easier, then we carry it anyway. Because the alternative is becoming something we hate. Warren was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. I see my sister when I look at that baby. Her eyes. The shape of her face. It's like she's there looking at me, asking why I let her die. Your sister died in childbirth. You didn't let anything happen. I should have gotten better help, a real doctor instead of a midwife. Doctors die too. Probably wouldn't have made a difference. But maybe nothing. You can't live in maybe. It'll destroy you. Warren put his head in his hands. I don't know what to do. You stop hunting a child. You drop the custody claim. You let her live. And then what? I just go home? Pretend none of this happened? You get help, real help. Find someone to talk to about your sister, about your family, about what grief did to you. There's no one. There's always someone, minister, doctor, hell, even a bartender who'll listen. Anyone except yourself. Silas stood. You can't heal alone. I tried that. 15 years in the mountains avoiding people, thinking isolation was safety. All it did was make me hard. Made me forget how to be human. You seem pretty human to me. That's because Elena reminded me, forced me to care about something beyond survival. And you know what? It terrified me. Still does. Because caring means risking loss. But it also means living instead of just existing. Warren looked up. Why do you care what happens to me? Because you're not evil, just broken. And broken things can be fixed if you want them to be. I threw a baby in a river. Yeah, you did. And that's going to haunt you for the rest of your life. But killing her won't make it better. It'll just add her death to the weight you're already carrying. Warren stood, walked to the window, looked out at the street below. There's a moment, he said quietly, right before you do something terrible, where you know it's wrong. You know it'll change you, but you do it anyway because the alternative feels worse. I know that moment. When I put her in that river, I knew it was murder, knew I was becoming something I'd hate. But I did it anyway because living with the curse felt impossible. And now? Now I'm living with both, the curse and the guilt. And I don't know which is heavier. Silas joined him at the window. The curse isn't real, but the guilt is, and the only way to lighten it is to stop adding to it. By letting her live. By accepting what happened and moving forward. Your sister died, your brother died, your mother died. Elena didn't cause any of it, but she's alive, and she deserves a chance. Warren was quiet for a long time. Outside, someone walked past. Horse and cart rumbled by. Normal life continuing while they stood in this small room deciding life and death. If I drop the custody claim, Warren said finally, what happens to her? She stays with me. You know how to raise a child? No, but I'm learning. And I've got help. From who? The marshal's wife, local doctor, people who want to help. And when you die? When she's left alone in those mountains? I'm not planning on dying anytime soon. Neither was my brother. Fair point, but I've made arrangements. If something happens to me, she goes to a family in town, not an orphan house. People who will care for her. Warren turned to face him. You really love her. I do. Even though she's not yours. She is mine, not by blood, but by choice. That counts for something. Warren's eyes were wet. My sister would have wanted her to live, would have wanted her to be happy. Then honor that. Let Elena have the life your sister wanted for her. Warren walked back to the bed, sat down, put his head in his hands again. I'm tired, he said. So tired of carrying this. Then put it down. I don't know if I can. Try. That's all anyone can do. Warren looked up at Silas. Really looked at him. Not with hatred or suspicion, just exhaustion. If I drop the claim, will you tell her about them? When she's older, tell her about my sister and brother and mother? I will. Tell her they weren't bad people, just unlucky. I promise. Warren nodded slowly. All right. I'll talk to my lawyer. Drop the custody claim. Stop fighting this. Silas felt something in his chest unclench. Thank you. Don't thank me. This doesn't make us even. Doesn't undo what I did. No, but it's a start. Warren stood, extended his hand. Silas took it. They shook. Two men who'd tried to kill each other now trying to find peace. Take care of her, Warren said. I will. And if the curse is real, if something happens to you because of her, it won't, because curses aren't real. Only grief is. Warren's hand tightened on Silas's for a moment, then he let go. Silas turned to leave, stopped at the door. What will you do now? I don't know. Go home, I guess. Try to rebuild what's left. You ever need help? You know where to find me. Warren almost smiled. In the mountains, avoiding people. Something like that. Silas left. Mason followed him down the stairs and out onto the street. That went better than expected, the deputy said. Yeah. You really think he's done? Not going to change his mind? I think he's tired of fighting. Sometimes that's enough. They walked back to Reed's office. The marshal was waiting, arms crossed. Well? He's dropping the custody claim, Silas said. Reed's eyebrows rose. Just like that? Just like that. What did you say to him? The truth. That grief was destroying him and killing Elena wouldn't fix it. And he believed you? I think he wanted to believe. Just needed someone to give him permission to stop. Reed sat down at his desk. Well, that's one problem solved. Still leaves the federal marshals and the questions about your fitness as a guardian. What do I need to do? Stay visible. Prove you can care for her. Show you're not the unstable hermit Warren's lawyer painted you as. How? Move to town. At least temporarily. Let people see you with Elena. See that you're a good father. Silas felt the walls closing in. For how long? Until the investigation's done. Could be weeks. Could be months. I can't. You can. And you will. Because the alternative is losing her. Reed was right. Silas knew it. But the thought of living in town, surrounded by people, watched constantly, it made his skin crawl. There's a cabin at the edge of town, Reed continued. Belongs to a trapper who died last winter. Been empty since. You could stay there. Close enough to count as town, far enough to give you space. What about my cabin? My traps? Deputy Mason can watch it. Check your lines, keep things running. Mason nodded. Happy to. Been wanting to learn more about trapping anyway. Silas looked between them, saw the trap closing but couldn't see a way out. All right, he said finally. I'll stay in town, but only until this is resolved. That's all I'm asking. Reed stood. I'll have the cabin cleaned up. You can move in tomorrow. Elena's back at my cabin with Mrs. Carter. I'll send word they can meet you at the new place. Silas nodded. Felt like he'd just agreed to prison. But if it kept Elena safe, it was worth it. The cabin at the edge of town was small but solid. 1 room, stone fireplace, decent roof. About a quarter mile from the main buildings. Close enough to be part of town, far enough to breathe. Maeve brought Elena the next morning. The baby started crying the moment she saw Silas, reaching for him with both arms. Missed you, Maeve said, handing her over. Cried for hours after you left. Only stopped when I promised you were coming back. Silas took Elena, held her close. She grabbed his shirt, buried her face in his chest, and made small sobbing sounds. I know, he said quietly. I'm sorry. Won't leave you again. You can't promise that, Maeve said gently. Life doesn't work that way. Then I'll try not to. Maeve looked around the cabin. It's not much. It's enough. You'll need supplies, food, clothes, toys for Elena. I'll manage. You'll accept help, that's the deal. You're in town now, part of a community, and communities help each other. Silas wanted to argue, but Elena was falling asleep against him, exhausted from crying, and Maeve had kind eyes that made it hard to be stubborn. All right, he said. I'll accept help. Good, because half the women in town are already organizing. You're the talk of Fort McKinley, the hermit who saved a baby. People want to help. I didn't save her for attention. I know. That's why they want to help. Maeve smiled. Welcome to civilization, Silas Mercer. It's loud and intrusive and full of people who care whether you want them to or not. Over the next week, Silas learned she was right. People came by constantly, bringing food, clothes, advice, wanting to see Elena, wanting to help. It was overwhelming, exhausting, and slowly, reluctantly, Silas began to realize it was also necessary. He couldn't raise Elena alone, couldn't give her everything she needed. He didn't know how to braid hair or teach reading or any of the 1,000 things a child would need. But the community did. Women taught him how to make better food for Elena, how to handle teething, how to recognize sickness early, how to play in ways that helped her grow. Men helped repair the cabin, brought firewood, offered to help with anything needed. Children came to see Elena bringing toys and laughter. And slowly, the isolation Silas had built around himself for 15 years began to crack. He still hated crowds, still needed time alone, still felt anxious when too many people were around. But he also felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Connected. Part of something larger than himself. 3 weeks after moving to town, Reed came by with news. Federal marshals are satisfied. They interviewed Warren, checked his claims, reviewed the evidence. They're closing the investigation. Silas felt relief wash over him. So, Elena stays with me. Permanently. I've got the papers. You're her legal guardian. No one can challenge it. What about Warren? Dropped all claims. Told the marshals he was wrong. That grief made him see things that weren't there. He's going back east, starting over somewhere new. Silas nodded, hoped Warren found whatever peace was possible. There's one more thing, Reed said, He pulled out another paper. Adoption papers. If you want to make it official, make her legally your daughter. Silas took the paper, looked at it. What's the difference between guardian and father? Guardian is temporary, conditional, can be revoked if circumstances change. Father is permanent, forever. And if something happens to me? I've talked to Maeve. She and I will take Elena if you die. Raise her with our kids. Give her a family. Silas looked at Elena playing on the floor. She'd grown in the past month, was trying to pull herself up on furniture. Soon she'd be walking, talking, growing into her own person. What do I need to do? Reed smiled. Sign here, I'll witness it. Then she's yours. Legally, permanently. Silas signed. His hand shook slightly. Not from injury this time, from the weight of what he was doing. 15 years ago, he'd sworn off family, off attachment, off everything that could hurt. Now he was signing papers that made a baby his daughter. The old Silas would have run. But the old Silas had died in a frozen river, drowning alongside a child he couldn't let go. It's done, Reed said, taking the paper back. Congratulations, Silas. You're officially a father. Elena Mercer took her first steps on a Tuesday morning in late March, when the last of winter's snow was melting into mud and the world smelled like wet earth and possibility. Silas had been living in town for 2 months by then. 2 months of noise and neighbors and learning that civilization wasn't the enemy he'd believed it to be. 2 months of people bringing casseroles and advice and questions about the baby. 2 months of slowly remembering how to be human. He'd been making coffee when it happened, turned around and Elena was standing, actually standing, holding onto the chair for support. She looked at him with those silver gray eyes, let go of the chair, and took 3 wobbly steps before falling on her rear end. She looked surprised, then laughed. Silas dropped the coffee cup. It shattered on the floor, hot liquid spreading, but he didn't care. He crossed the room, picked her up, held her against his chest. You walked, he said. You actually walked. She babbled something that might have been words or might have been nothing. Didn't matter. She'd walked. There was a knock at the door. Silas opened it, still holding Elena, and found Maeve standing there with a basket of bread. You look like you've seen a ghost, she said. She walked. Just now. 3 steps. Maeve's face lit up. Did she really? Oh, that's wonderful. That means she's right on schedule. Some babies walk at 9 months, some at 15. She's right in the middle. Is that good? It's normal, which is exactly what you want. She came inside, set the basket on the table, carefully avoiding the broken cup and spilled coffee. You're going to need to baby-proof everything now. Once they start walking, they get into everything. Baby-proof? Cover sharp corners. Move dangerous things up high. Watch her every second because she'll try to climb things she has no business climbing. Maeve smiled. Welcome to the next stage. It's exhausting. She wasn't wrong. Within a week, Elena was walking everywhere. Unsteady, falling often, but determined. She'd pull herself up on furniture, take a few steps, fall, get back up, try again. The cabin became a maze of potential disasters. Hot stove, sharp knives, stairs that she wanted to climb but couldn't. Silas found himself constantly alert, watching, ready to catch her before she hurt herself. It was like being at war again, except the enemy was a toddler with no sense of self-preservation. You look tired, Reed said one afternoon, stopping by to check on them. I am tired. She doesn't stop. Ever. That's toddlers. Wait until she starts talking. Then you'll really be in trouble. Can't wait, Silas said, meaning the opposite. Reed laughed. You're doing good, though. Better than I expected. What did you expect? Honestly, I thought you'd run. First sign of trouble, head back to your mountain and never look back. Thought about it. But you didn't. No. Silas watched Elena trying to stack wooden blocks. She'd get 2 stacked, then the tower would fall, and she'd start over. Turns out, I'm more stubborn than scared. That's one way to put it. Reed sat down. There's something I need to tell you. News from back east. Silas looked up. Warren? He's dead. Caught fever 2 weeks ago. Died 3 days later. Silas felt something complicated move through his chest. Not quite grief, not quite relief. Something in between. How'd you find out? His lawyer sent word. Wanted us to know that Warren changed his will before he died. Left everything to Elena. Everything? What's left of his estate? Wasn't much. Debts ate most of it, but there's a small amount, few $100s. It'll be held in trust until she's 18. Silas sat down across from Reed. Did he say anything else? The lawyer included a letter, addressed to you. Reed pulled an envelope from his coat. I haven't read it, figured that was private. Silas took the letter. The paper was fine quality, address written in careful script. He opened it. The handwriting inside was shaky, like Warren had been sick when he wrote it. Mercer. By the time you read this, I'll likely be dead. The fever's bad and getting worse. The doctor says it could go either way, but I can feel it in my bones. This is the end. I wanted to write while I still could, to say things that need saying. You were right. About all of it. There was no curse, just grief and fear, and a man too broken to see truth. I threw a baby in a river because I couldn't face the fact that my sister died for no reason. That's unforgivable. I know that now. I've spent the last 2 months trying to make peace with what I did. It's not working. I don't think I'll ever forgive myself. But maybe Elena will someday, when she's old enough to understand. Tell her about her mother, about Sarah. Tell her she was kind and strong and died bringing life into the world. Tell her that her mother would have loved her, would have given anything to see her grow up. Tell her I'm sorry. That I let grief turn me into a monster, that I tried to destroy the only good thing left of Sarah. I've left what little I have to Elena. It's not much, but it's hers. Use it for her education, her future, whatever she needs. Take care of her, Mercer. You're a better father than I ever could have been, better than I deserve to be. Warren Hale. Silas read it twice, then folded it carefully and put it back in the envelope. You all right? Reed asked. Yeah, just... Silas stopped. Didn't know how to finish that sentence. Complicated? Something like that. You gonna tell Elena about him when she's older? I promised I would, and I keep my promises. Reed nodded. Good. Everyone deserves to know where they came from, even if the story's ugly. Elena had abandoned the blocks and was now trying to pull books off a shelf. Silas got up, redirected her to the toys. She protested for a moment, then got distracted by a carved horse, and forgot what she'd been doing. She looks happy, Reed observed. I think she is. As happy as a 1-year-old can be. And you? Silas considered. Getting there. That's all any of us can do. Reed stood. I should go. Got paperwork that won't do itself. You need anything? You know where to find me. After Reed left, Silas sat on the floor with Elena. She brought him the horse, babbled something incomprehensible, then wandered off to find something else. He thought about Warren's letter, about grief and forgiveness and the ways people broke under pressure. Warren had been wrong, but he'd also been human, and humans made mistakes when pain overwhelmed reason. The hard part was that those mistakes had consequences. Elena would grow up without her mother, without her uncle, with a father who'd been a stranger until a frozen river forced them together. Not perfect, not even close. But it was what they had. Spring fully arrived in April, turning Fort McKinley from brown and gray to green. Flowers appeared, birds returned. The world woke up. Maeve came by more often now, bringing her daughter Rose, a girl of 6 with her mother's kind eyes. Rose was fascinated by Elena, treating her like a living doll. She'd sit on the floor playing with her for hours, patient and gentle. Rose wants a little sister, Maeve explained, but that's not happening, so Elena's the next best thing. She's good with her, Silas observed. She's good with everyone. Gets it from her father. Maeve paused. Speaking of which, Jonah wanted me to ask you something. What? There's a town meeting next week about building a school. They want input from parents. I'm not really the town meeting type. You're a parent now. That makes you the town meeting type whether you like it or not. Silas must have looked panicked because Maeve laughed. It's not that bad. Just people sitting around talking about their kids' futures. You might even find it interesting. Doubt it. Try anyway, for Elena. She'll need school eventually. Maeve was right, of course, but the thought of sitting in a room full of people talking about community things made Silas want to run back to his mountain cabin and never come out. Still, he'd signed adoption papers, made Elena his daughter. That came with responsibilities beyond just keeping her fed and safe. "I'll go," he said, "but I'm not making any speeches." "Deal." The town meeting was held in the boarding house dining room. 20 people showed up, most of them parents or people who cared about Fort McKinley's future. Silas sat in the back holding Elena, trying to be invisible. Didn't work. "Glad you could make it, Mercer," someone called out. Others turned to look, smiled, waved, like he was one of them. He still wasn't used to that. The meeting started. People talked about funding and construction and finding a teacher, boring details that would have put Silas to sleep if Elena hadn't been squirming in his arms. Then someone said, "We should think about what we want our children to learn. Not just reading and writing, but values, character." That started a debate. What values? Whose character? How do you teach those things? Silas listened, half interested, until someone asked, "What does it mean to be a good person?" The room went quiet. People looked at each other, uncertain. Then Elena grabbed Silas's face with both hands and made a sound. Not quite a word, but close. Everyone looked at them. Silas felt pressure to say something, anything. "I think—" He stopped. This was a mistake. But people were waiting. "I think being good means doing the right thing even when it's hard, even when it costs you." "Like what?" someone asked. "Like pulling someone from a river when you could have walked away. Like choosing to care about people even when caring hurts. Like admitting when you're wrong and trying to be better." He paused. "That's what I'd want Elena to learn. Not that people are perfect, but that they can choose to be better." The room was silent for a moment. Then Maeve said quietly, "That's the best definition I've heard." Others nodded. The conversation moved on, but several people looked at Silas differently now, with respect, maybe even admiration. He wasn't sure he deserved it. After the meeting, an older woman approached him. She introduced herself as Margaret Thorne, a former teacher from Philadelphia. "I heard what you said in there," she told him, "about choosing to be better. That's wisdom earned through hardship." "Just experience," Silas said. "Same thing." She looked at Elena. "How old is she?" "Year and a half now, walking everywhere, starting to say words." "She'll need proper education, someone to teach her reading, mathematics, history." "That's years away." "Comes faster than you think. I'd like to start a school here, small at first, just a few children, but quality education. Would you be interested?" "In what?" "In sending Elena when she's ready, and perhaps in helping build the school. You strike me as someone who understands the value of education." "I can barely read," Silas admitted. Margaret smiled. "Then we'll teach you too. It's never too late to learn." The idea was absurd. A 40-year-old man learning to read alongside children. But then again, everything about the last 6 months had been absurd. And here he was, still standing, still figuring things out. "All right," he said. "When you get the school going, let me know." "I will, thank you, Mr. Mercer." She walked away, leaving Silas wondering what he'd just agreed to. Elena tugged on his shirt. "Da," she said clearly. "Da." Silas looked down at her. "Did you just—" "Da," she repeated, smiling. His throat tightened. That was her first real word, and she'd used it for him. "Yeah," he said quietly. "That's right. Da." Summer came hot and long. The cabin at the edge of town felt cramped, so Silas started taking Elena outside more. They'd walk to the creek, not Frostwater, a different one, safer. He'd sit on the bank while she played in shallow water, splashing and laughing. Sometimes other children would join them. Rose came often, bringing friends. They'd play games that Silas didn't understand, but Elena loved. He watched her interact with other kids, saw her personality emerging. She was cautious but curious, quiet but brave. When another child took her toy, she'd get it back without crying. When someone fell, she'd try to help. She was becoming her own person. That both thrilled and terrified him. One afternoon, Maeve came to the creek with Rose and her 2 sons. The boys immediately stripped down and jumped in the deeper water, while Rose stayed with Elena in the shallow. Maeve sat beside Silas on the bank. "You've changed," she said. "How so?" "When you first came to town, you looked like you wanted to be anywhere else. Now you look, I don't know, content, maybe." Wouldn't go that far. Why not? Silas watched Elena. Because I still don't know what I'm doing. Every day is just guessing and hoping I don't mess her up too badly. That's called parenting. We're all doing the same thing. You make it look easy, Maeve laughed. It's not. Trust me, my oldest set the kitchen on fire last month trying to make breakfast. My middle child won't sleep unless he's holding his father's boot. And Rose cries every time she sees a spider. They're disasters, but they're my disasters. And you're okay with that? I have to be, because the alternative is driving myself crazy trying to control everything. Can't do that with kids. They're going to make mistakes, get hurt, do stupid things. All you can do is be there when they need you. Silas thought about that. I spent 15 years trying to control everything. My environment, my routine, who I saw, what I did. Thought that was survival. What changed? Elena. She made control impossible. Made me realize survival and living are different things. And now? Now I'm trying to figure out how to live. Maeve bumped his shoulder with hers. You're doing better than you think. That evening, as Silas was putting Elena to bed, she said something new. Mama? Silas froze. What? Mama? She repeated, looking at him with those serious eyes. His chest tightened. She'd never asked about a mother before. Hadn't seemed to notice she was different from other children who had both parents. Your mama. He stopped. How did you explain this to a toddler? Your mama's not here. She died when you were born. Elena's face crumpled. Not quite crying, but close. But you have people who love you, Silas continued quickly. You have me, and Maeve, and Rose, and lots of others. That's different from a mama, but it's still family. Mama, Elena said again, sadder this time. Silas picked her up. I know. I'm sorry. If I could bring her back, I would, but I can't. So you're stuck with me instead. She put her head on his shoulder. Didn't cry, just held on. He rocked her gently, feeling the weight of everything she'd never have. A mother's love, her uncle's family, the life she should have had if grief hadn't poisoned Warren's mind. But she had this. A father who'd jumped into a frozen river for her. A community that cared. A future that was uncertain but possible. Not perfect. Never perfect. But real. Autumn arrived with cold winds and falling leaves. Elena was 2 now, talking in full sentences, running everywhere, getting into everything. Margaret Thorne's school opened in September. Just 5 students at first, ages 4 to 8. Elena was too young still, but Silas helped build the schoolhouse anyway. Cutting timber, fitting boards, learning carpentry skills he'd never needed in the mountains. Other men worked alongside him. They talked while they worked, about their families, their hopes, their fears. Normal conversations, the kind Silas hadn't had in years. He found he didn't hate it. One day, while they were raising the roof frame, a man named Tom asked, You ever think about remarrying, having more kids? No, Silas said immediately. Why not? You're good with Elena. Could have a whole family. One's plenty. But Elena needs a mother, someone to teach her woman things. She's got Maeve for that. Tom hammered a nail. Just seems like you're making life harder than it needs to be. Single father, living alone. Could use a wife. Not interested. You say that now. Wait until Elena's older. When she's asking questions you can't answer. When she needs things you can't provide. Silas wanted to argue, but Tom had a point. Elena was already asking about mothers, about family, about why she was different from other kids. Those questions were only going to get harder. That evening, Maeve came by with dinner, stew and bread, still hot. She did this once a week now, claiming she always made too much food. They ate together while Elena played with Rose. The 2 girls had become inseparable. Elena would cry when Rose had to leave. Rose would ask every day when she could see Elena again. Someone asked me today if I was planning to remarry, Silas said. Maeve looked up from her stew. What did you say? That I wasn't interested. Why not? Because I don't need a wife. I'm managing fine. You are, but Elena might benefit from having a mother figure. She has you. I'm not her mother. I'm her friend's mother. That's different. Silas set down his spoon. What are you saying? Maeve was quiet for a moment. I'm saying that Jonah and I have been talking. About you. About Elena. About how you've changed since coming to town. Changed how? You're less alone. Less angry. More, I don't know, present. Like you're actually here instead of just existing. That's Elena. She made that happen. She started it, but you finished it. You chose to stay, to be part of things. That takes courage. Or stupidity, Maeve smiled. Sometimes those are the same thing. She paused. Jonah wants to offer you something. What? A job. As deputy. Mason's leaving next month. Moving east to be near family. Jonah needs someone he trusts. Someone who knows the territory. Someone who'll do the right thing even when it's hard. Silas stared at her. He wants me as a deputy? Yes. I shot a superior officer 15 years ago. He knows. He also knows you did it because the man ordered you to burn innocent people. That's not a black mark. That's proof you have a conscience. I don't know anything about law enforcement. You know about people, about justice, about protecting those who can't protect themselves. That's more important than knowing procedures. What about Elena? You'd work normal hours, be home every night. We'd help with childcare when needed. Rose already loves her. They could grow up like sisters. The offer was tempting, more tempting than it should be. A real job, steady income, respect from the community, a way to provide for Elena beyond just surviving. I need to think about it, Silas said. Take your time. Jonah won't hire anyone else until you decide. After Maeve and Rose left, Silas sat in the dark cabin, listening to Elena's soft breathing from the bed. A deputy. Him. 2 years ago, he wouldn't have considered it, would have laughed at the idea. But 2 years ago, he was a different man, harder, lonelier, convinced that isolation was the only way to stay safe. Elena had proved that wrong, had shown him that safety without connection wasn't safety at all, just a slower kind of dying. He decided to sleep on it, make a choice in the morning. The next day, he went to Reed's office. Maeve told you about the job, Reed said. Not a question. She did. And? Why me? You've got better options. Do I? Because from where I'm sitting, you're exactly what this town needs. Someone who understands that law isn't about rules. It's about people. Someone who'll jump into a river for a stranger because it's right. That was one time. Once is enough. It showed character. And character's what I need in a deputy. Silas looked at the badge on Reed's desk. Simple piece of metal. But it meant something. Responsibility, trust, belonging. I'll do it, he said, on one condition. What? If it interferes with taking care of Elena, I quit. No questions. No hard feelings. Reed smiled. Deal. He pushed the badge across the desk. Silas picked it up, turned it over in his hands. It was heavier than he expected. When do I start? Next Monday. Gives you time to prepare Elena. And yourself. That night, Silas pinned the badge to his shirt and looked at himself in the small mirror. He looked strange. Official. Like someone who mattered. Elena toddled over, grabbed the badge, examined it with intense concentration. Shiny, she said. Yeah, shiny. What's it for? For helping people, for keeping folks safe. Like you kept me safe? Silas picked her up. Just like that. She put her small hand over the badge, over his heart. You're good at that. His throat tightened. I try. Try is good, she said seriously. Out of the mouths of children, Silas thought, try is good. That was all any of them could do. Winter came again, but this time Silas was ready. Firewood stacked. Food stored. Warm clothes for Elena, who'd grown so much she barely fit last year's things. He worked as deputy 3 days a week. Mostly quiet work, settling disputes, checking on trappers, making sure no one was freezing to death. Sometimes he'd bring Elena with him, her riding in front of his saddle, asking questions about everything. Why is the sky blue? I don't know. Why don't you know? Because I'm not that smart. Can you get smarter? I'm trying. Margaret Thorne had started evening classes for adults who wanted to learn reading and writing. Silas went twice a week, sitting at a desk meant for children, struggling through simple words while his daughter slept at Maeve's house. It was humiliating, also necessary. He wanted to read to Elena, wanted to help her with schoolwork when she was old enough, wanted to be the kind of father who could answer questions instead of shrugging and saying, "I don't know." Progress was slow, but progress was progress. 3 years after pulling Elena from the river, Silas stood in Fort McKinley's general store, buying supplies. Elena held his hand, chattering about Rose and school and a butterfly she'd seen. A stranger walked in. Man in his 40s, well-dressed, carrying a leather bag. He looked around like he was evaluating the place. "Can I help you?" Maeve asked from behind the counter. "I'm looking for Silas Mercer. I was told he lives here." Silas tensed. "I'm Mercer." The stranger turned, extended his hand. "Caleb Hale, Warren's cousin." Silas's hand went to the knife on his belt. Caleb noticed. "Easy. I'm not here to cause trouble. I came to meet my niece." He looked down at Elena, who was hiding behind Silas's leg, peeking out at the stranger. "You're Elena?" Caleb asked gently. She nodded. "I'm family. Well, sort of. My cousin was your uncle. We didn't know about you until recently, until after Warren died." "What do you want?" Silas asked, voice hard. "To see her, to make sure she's okay, and—" Caleb reached into his bag. "To give you this." He pulled out a photograph. Old, faded, a woman holding a baby. "That's Sarah, your mother," Caleb said to Elena. "She was my cousin, one of the best people I ever knew. I thought you might want to have this. To know what she looked like." Elena took the photograph with careful hands, stared at it. "She looks like me," Elena said quietly. "She does," Caleb agreed. "You have her eyes." Silas felt his guard dropping slightly. "You came all this way just to give her a photograph?" "And to make sure she's safe. Warren wrote to me before he died. Told me everything, what he did, what you did. He asked me to check on Elena, to make sure she was happy." "Why would you do that? She's nothing to you." "She's family. That means something." Caleb looked around the store, at Maeve watching carefully, at the other customers who'd stopped to listen. "Can we talk privately?" They went outside. Elena stayed with Maeve, still holding the photograph. "Warren's letter was difficult to read," Caleb said. "The guilt, the regret, but also the relief. He said talking to you saved him, gave him peace before he died. I didn't save him, just told him the truth." "Sometimes that's the same thing." Caleb pulled out another envelope. "This is for Elena. A letter Sarah wrote when she was pregnant. She knew childbirth was dangerous, wanted to leave something behind in case what happened." Silas took the envelope. It was sealed with wax, addressed to "my daughter." "I can't read," Silas admitted. "Not well, anyway. Working on it." "Then find someone who can. Let Elena hear her mother's words. She deserves that." "Why are you really here?" Caleb met his eyes. "Because Warren's letter said you were a good man, that Elena was lucky to have you. I wanted to see if that was true." "And? I can see she's loved, safe, happy. That's all anyone could want for her." Caleb held out his hand. "Thank you. For saving her. For being what Warren couldn't be." Silas shook his hand. "You're not going to try to take her? Take her where? To live with strangers? She has a home, a father, friends. Why would I disrupt that?" Caleb smiled. "Besides, Warren made it clear. You're her family now. Blood doesn't change that." After Caleb left, Silas went back inside. Found Elena still holding the photograph, tracing her mother's face with one finger. "Can we keep it?" she asked. "It's yours. Of course we can keep it." "Will you tell me about her? About my real mama?" Silas knelt down to her level. "Sarah was your mother, but so is Maeve, in a way. And your real family is everyone who loves you. That's Rose and Marshall Reed and everyone in this town. That's what matters. Not blood. Not where you came from, but who's there when you need them." Elena thought about that. "So you're my real papa? If you'll have me." She hugged him. "I'll have you." That night, Silas asked Maeve to read Sarah's letter aloud. The three of them sat by the fire, Silas, Elena, and Maeve, while Maeve's voice filled the cabin with words from a dead woman to the daughter she'd never know. "My darling girl, if you're reading this, It means I didn't survive bringing you into the world. I'm sorry. I wanted so badly to be there for you, to watch you grow, to teach you everything I know. But if I can't be there, I need you to know some things. First, you are wanted. So wanted. You are not a mistake or a burden. You are a gift I chose to give the world. Second, you are strong. You come from a long line of strong women who survived things that should have broken them. That strength is in you. Use it. Third, be kind. The world will be hard enough without you adding to it. Choose kindness even when it costs you. And finally, find people who see you, really see you. Not what they want you to be, but who you are. Those people are your real family. Hold on to them. I love you. I will always love you, even if I never get to meet you. Your mother, Sarah. When Maeve finished, Elena was crying. So was Maeve. Silas's eyes were wet too, though he'd never admit it. She sounds nice, Elena said. She was, Maeve said gently. Warren told me about her once. She was kind, brave, just like you're going to be. Elena looked at Silas. Did you know her? No, but I wish I had. Would she like you? I don't know, maybe. I think she would, because you saved me. That's what mamas want, for someone to keep their babies safe. Silas pulled her close. Then I'll keep doing that, for as long as you need. Forever? Forever. 5 years after the river, Elena started school. Silas walked her there the first day, holding her hand, feeling like he was sending her into battle. What if no one likes me? She asked. They'll like you. You're likable. What if I can't learn? You'll learn. You're smart. What if... Elena. He knelt down. You're going to be fine. Better than fine. You're going to be great. How do you know? Because you're brave. Remember that day in the river? You held on, kept fighting. That's who you are. A fighter. She hugged him. I'm scared. Being scared is okay. Means you're trying something new. That's how you grow. Rose came running over. Elena, come sit with me. I saved you a seat. Elena looked at Silas one more time. He nodded. She let go of his hand and ran to Rose. Silas stood there watching through the schoolhouse window as Margaret Thorne called the class to order, watching as his daughter sat up straight, eager to learn. He'd given up so much to save her, his isolation, his control, his carefully constructed walls. But watching her now, surrounded by friends, safe and loved, and growing into whoever she was meant to be, he'd do it all again. Every frozen step, every terrifying moment, every night of doubt and fear, all of it. Because that was what love meant. Not the easy kind from stories, but the hard kind. The kind that required sacrifice and growth, and choosing someone else's needs over your comfort. Maeve walked up beside him. She'll be fine. I know. You don't look convinced. I'm a father. We're never convinced. Maeve laughed. True enough. She paused. Jonah and I have been talking. About us. About you and Elena. About family. What about it? We'd like to make it official, not marriage. I'm already married, but family. Legal paperwork that says if anything happens to you, Elena comes to us. Not as foster care. As adoption. She'd be Rose's sister. Really, truly. Silas looked at her. You'd do that? We already love her. Might as well make it official. Why? Because you jumped into a river for a stranger. Because you chose to stay when you could have run. Because you're proof that family isn't about blood. It's about choice. She smiled. And because Elena deserves to know she'll always have a home, no matter what. That evening, Silas sat with Elena after school, listening to her chatter about everything she'd learned, letters and numbers, and a song about animals. Margaret says I'm smart, Elena told him proudly. You are smart. And Rose shared her lunch with me. That's nice of her. And Tommy pulled my hair, but Margaret made him apologize. Good. Elena climbed into his lap. Da? Yeah? Are you happy? The question surprised him. Why do you ask? Because you smile more now. You used to look sad all the time, but now you smile. Silas thought about it. Was he happy? 2 years ago, he wouldn't have known how to answer. Happiness seemed like something other people felt, not him, but now, yeah, he said, I'm happy. Because of me? Because of you. And because of this. He gestured around the cabin, at the town beyond, at the life they'd built. Because I stopped running from things and started running toward them. What things? People. Connection. You. Elena thought about that. I'm glad you ran toward me. Me too, kid. Me too. Years later, when Elena was grown and had children of her own, she'd ask him about that day in the river, about what made him jump instead of walk away. And Silas would tell her the truth, that he didn't know, that in the moment there was no decision, just action, just a cry for help and his body responding before his mind could interfere, that sometimes the most important choices aren't choices at all. They're instincts, their values so deep you don't know you have them until they're tested, that saving her had saved him, not from death, from emptiness, from the slow decay of a life lived without purpose or connection, that jumping into that frozen river was the smartest thing he'd ever done, and the scariest, and the best. But that would come later. For now, he sat in a small cabin at the edge of Fort McKinley, holding his daughter while she told him about her day and felt something he hadn't felt in 15 years. Peace. Not the false peace of isolation, but the real kind. The messy, complicated, terrifying kind that came from loving people who could hurt you, from building something that could fall apart, from choosing to be vulnerable instead of safe. Outside, the first snow of the season began to fall. Inside, the fire burned warm, and a man who'd spent 15 years alone learned what he should have known all along. That survival wasn't enough, that walls protected nothing worth having, that the only way to truly live was to risk everything for something, for someone who mattered more than safety. Elena fell asleep in his arms, small and warm and trusting. Silas looked down at her, at this child who'd arrived in his life through ice and water and impossible circumstances, and understood finally what his son's death had been trying to teach him. That love didn't end when people died. It transformed, found new shapes, new people, new chances. And if you were brave enough, or desperate enough, to accept those chances when they came crying through a frozen valley, you might discover that the life you thought was over was actually just beginning. He carried Elena to bed, tucked her in, kissed her forehead, then sat by the window, watching snow fall on a town that had become home, and let himself feel grateful for the river that had almost taken them both, for the choice he'd made without thinking, for every hard day and sleepless night that had led them here, for the chance to be a father again, for the daughter who'd taught him how to live. The snow kept falling, soft and steady, covering the world in white. And in a small cabin at the edge of civilization, a man who'd once believed in nothing but survival learned to believe in something better. In second chances, in chosen family, in love that lasted beyond death and grew in unexpected places. In the stubborn, impossible, beautiful truth that sometimes the best things in life come from the worst moments. If you're brave enough to reach for them when they're drowning, if you're willing to jump,